So again, you're trying to identify the label design and six-pack design in a local market. So I would suggest going to maybe one of the local markets around your neighborhood. Just go down one of the drink aisles and kind of like what pops out, what makes an impression on you, and how does that affect your decisions that you make. So to begin with the assignment, the first thing you want to do is fill out the creative brief, and so that is located in the assignment. And there's a link in here. There it is. So make a copy of this. It's just a Google Doc if you want to download it in another program. Just want to try and make it flexible for you guys. This will be 30 points of your final grade. So generally what will happen is a client will come in and we will sit down with them and try and hammer out some of the details of what they're after. What is it that they need from us, right? Sometimes they don't even know, and that's always a challenge too. So we always start out with things that are related to their company, like if they have a company mission or what kind of philosophy they have behind the overall goal of what it is that they're marketing or trying to get out there. And so this is something that's created for you and what your personal interests are. And so I really want you to think about, what things aesthetically do you like and how can you put them into words. So the first question is name your interests, something, and these can be one-word descriptions that are important to you. So that could be fashion, design, photography, painting, illustration, animals, whatever, just think of the things that kind of bubble up to the top of your head and just jot those down. It doesn't have to be a lengthy list, maybe like 5 to 10 items in here. And then what kind of a local business are you aligned with your interests? So using your interests, where do you choose to go shopping? Is it in the bigger box stores or is it mainly like a local driven product? And it doesn't have to be necessarily a grocery market. It could be a pet store or something along those lines where you go to experience that. And then describe it. So how do your interests align with the business mission statement or its philosophy? This should only be like 1 or 2 sentences. So for example, I like to shop at New Seasons because it generally has local fare. It's organic, tends to be healthy, and I'm supporting local farmers, something like that. And then define the need. So what it is in your case that you're trying to plug into. So in this example, it's a drink market. So is it focused towards sports or is it focused towards more of that person looking for a locally crafted item, right? Something that is made here in Oregon or in the Northwest or something like that. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? Okay. So that'll kind of give you like a framework or a reference point to start with. The next thing you want to do is go out and actually find some examples of what those could look like. And what I like to do when I'm doing this kind of work is I'll usually use like slides or Google Draw or something, or you could use Photoshop, whatever you want to do. And I'll just make a blank document. And I'll just call it final flipboard. And I'll go ahead and make the page a little bit bigger. And I'll just, start going out and plugging things in that I see from my research. Or if you want to just sketch things out and like take a picture with your phone and stick it in there, whatever works for you, as long as you have some kind of a reference starting point. And so I'll just type in, let's see, local craft beer, Portland. And these don't have to be alcoholic. You can use non-alcoholic. And so I will kind of go through and just look out, and I could even narrow my search down to label design. That's where I want to start with my design for this. What are some of these things that look appealing to me right away? And you could even use photographs from the uh, store or wherever it is that you're shopping. And so I'll pull this tab over here. And I'll just start like grabbing these things and just throwing them into this lookbook. So what things are like popping out to me that I like as far as, is it illustration? Is it the way it was photographed? Is it the label itself? So go through and find a couple of working examples that are currently out there. I won't do a whole bunch. I'll just do a few here. And I'm going to keep adding to this document as I start my design too. So this isn't just like a one and done thing. I like to keep these going as I create the whole design. So let me make this a little bigger. And so then I'll just come in here and start to take some little notes on like, what is it I was looking at and why did it catch my attention? And again, it doesn't have to have really any organization. You can organize it however you like. So let's grab the type tool. Color scheme worked really well here. I like the way that they've incorporated a lot of that kind of Northwest outdoor feel to it. I'm really just trying to kind of narrow down like my design decisions at this point. So, what things am I going to be looking at when I am starting to lay this out? Color again. I like this background texture. These don't have to actually be, formal labels of anything. If maybe you have photography that you've been doing or drawing that you've been doing, you can just, throw that in there and kind of just point out, like, I want to incorporate this somehow because I like the way that this was shot in this light, or maybe I've been working on this illustration for a long time and I want to choose pieces of it that I can put into my design. So something that is obviously from you, but that you can identify with for the client. So anyway, I would just go through and make little notes in here. Once you have the lookbook done, again, this doesn't have to be an extensive thing. It's just kind of like a mind map of stuff. I'm just taking a spitball and like throwing it at the wall. It just kind of helps me like format my thinking a little bit. The next thing I want to do is find an actual template or a label that I could trace and use as like my outline in Illustrator. Again, you don't have to use Illustrator for this. If you want to use Photoshop, InDesign, some of you are using Procreate, whatever works for you, in other words. So I've got a label, template, fine design. Be more specific, so like a bottle label. So I would just go through the rundown on some of these and trying to look at, what are some of these that I think look or are going to work for my particular tastes. And then I'll just throw like these into my document. So go here. And you want to start with the label because that's really like the meat of, or the kind of the focus of the whole project. Like, is it going to be photograph driven or is it more like illustration driven? Nowadays, you can pretty much do just about either one of them. In the past, it was more about like line design, illustration, kind of focused. It just was easier to produce, but these days it's pretty much anything goes. So now that I've found a couple of label designs, I want to start putting those into one of the drawing programs. And I'm just going to use Illustrator for this example. But again, use what works for you. And so I'll go ahead and start Illustrator. Another good thing too is to think about the bottle style that you want. Is it more traditional or is it a unique bottle? And then actually find some of the physical dimensions of that bottle or the label so that you know exactly what you're looking at here. So just quickly, I'll make a new document. I'm just going to make this just a regular size piece of paper. I'll do it horizontally. And let's see if I can copy and paste these into here. Well, let me save this. Let's download it as a JPEG. And then I'll place this in here. Just give me a second, Austin. So then I'll start to resize this thing. Use my pen tool or my shape tools to start laying out my label first. So if you're going to use a can, that's fine. If you're going to use a bottle, you may want to consider a neck label because it's going to be in a 6-pack carrier, so you would want that to stick out. And so I'll just start grabbing some of these elements and then laying them out over here. So just kind of like a general rectangle. And then I could grab my pen tool. Maybe I could trace some of these shapes from this guy over here. Kind of like this crest on this India Pale Ale label. If you also want to use your shape tools, that's totally fine. So in this example with a polygon, if I double click, I can make a bunch of different sides to it. Maybe the star tool would be better. Yeah, that looks good. And so then I'll just start to reformat them in the way that I would want them to be incorporated. And if you want to then create subshapes in here, or maybe you want to use some type elements, I would suggest starting with the really simple stuff first. So like, what is the basic shape of it? How do I want the text to be aligned on there? So if it was a rounded design like this one in the bottom right corner over here, and then I could use my text tool to put text on a path. So really just drawing from everything that you've learned so far, incorporate those ideas into your design. So I'll come back through and just start formatting this stuff so that it kind of have like a good idea of just the basic elements. Don't worry about color when you're starting this. Just think simply about this part of the process. Just think shape and basic elements. So, what does that look like? How am I going to incorporate the ingredients? How do I want some of these other things to come out and be bolder or more important in the background? You guys also might remember that live image trace tool we were using. So maybe I like this idea of those trees in the background. Specifically to northwest. Okay, give me a second. So I could make a new document here. Place that. And then over here in my properties panel, I have that image trace option. And I'll just do the default for this because I'm just thinking black and white, no color right now. Expand it and ungroup it. And so now I've got, some of these other things that I can come in and edit. So maybe I just want part of this little mountain range here. Grab my eraser tool, just kind of cut off the section I don't want. Copy and paste that. So just start to build it, from the ground up using some really basic shapes and elements. Don't worry about color yet. We'll get into that more on Wednesday. So if you're done with the magazine cover, go ahead and fill out the creative brief, and that can be adjustable, right? So you're going to turn it in at the end, but if you want to just kind of fill out the basics of it right now, you can always modify it and submit it later. But it just will start your thinking process along what you're looking for. Any questions on that? Okay. I'll show you guys a bunch of tricks, along the way as we go, but I just want to give you some time to start kind of feeling out what that's going to look like today. All right, I'll come around and help you guys out.